All right, we are nearly to the end of our first morning session. We have coming up next, and probably could start any old time if he's ready, Briel, to talk about the Raspberry Pi Zero as a USB keyboard adapter. Try to make it, well, I'll let him give you the explanation rather than just reading his summary here. So take it away.
Thanks, Steve. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you don't have to stare at my ugly mug there. So I haven't made any products or anything hardware-wise for the Apple II in quite some time. I've actually been kind of wrapped up in my career, my day job, so time has been kind of limited. Recently, I had some free time and I started looking at the Raspberry Pi and things that people have done with emulation and connecting it to the Apple II, and I thought, well, that's really great. And we have this new Raspberry Pi Zero. For anybody that's not familiar with these little magical boards, they cost $9.99, and they're essentially a self-contained computer. As a matter of fact, I just picked up another one this Thursday, at Micro Center for $10. So I was thinking about it, and I thought, what could I do with this in connection to the Apple II that other people haven't done? And I thought, well, it has a USB port, which is great, but I don't see anything for the Apple II or II Plus that has a USB interface. Now, I could be wrong. Over the last few years, people have been putting out phenomenal products for the Apple II, and I'm just amazed at all the new hardware that's out there. Disk emulators, everything. I mean, it's just a great time if you're an Apple II owner to own things. So with that given, I decided to see if I could take the Raspberry Pi I/O and make an interface that just directly connect to the 16 pin port on the Apple II. And so I created a real down and dirty connection to it. I've never used Python, so I thought this is a good time to learn Python. And I went out there and I started writing and learning code, and I connected up my design to my Replica 1, the Apple I Replica, which has an identical keyboard interface. And it worked first time. I was just blown away. I thought, well, this is great. So I put it in a drawer, and KFest was coming around, and I said, well, I should present this. So I submitted an entry, and thank you for accepting me on this demonstration, and then I plugged it up to a real Apple II and it didn't work. So I was kind of stuck where it's like, what do I do here? So I started digging into it, and I noticed that the brand new Raspberry Pi does not like to interface with the older 40-year-old boards. There's a 3.3 volt to 5 volt difference, which normally doesn't cause a lot of problems, but in this case, it was creating some noise in the circuit. So I ended up having to put a chip in between just to kind of buffer out some of that noise. So here's a look at my initial design, which I have sitting in front of me right now, and it's just simply a Raspberry Pi with a dev board run to a breadboard, and then I put a chip in between and run it straight to a 16-pin keyboard interface. So, and with the USB keyboard connected up, it works great. You know, I can type in all the keys, everything works. Now, the Linux driver for the keyboard, for some reason, isn't allowing me to use Control-Q or Control-S. I'm not quite sure of that. It could be a Python issue. I don't know yet in the driver, but I'll dig into that more, see if we can't come away with the full key set working. But that's the only restriction I'm seeing so far. And then I started noticing that I have no way to reset the circuit. So I just simply added a direct connection to reset, programmed a key so that when you press delete, it will do a reset. So, and here you see a sample of it working. I've put some videos up in the channel for this topic in there so you can take a look at the video. So this is the big old mess of wires. This is the alpha phase what I call it. It's not fully tested. I've only had it working for about a week now. So the initial goal obviously was just a $10 Raspberry Pi as a USB keyboard interface.
Hey Vince.
Yeah.
One quick thing. Are the slides supposed to be advancing, or are we supposed to be seeing something else? Because all we see is your first slide. So I don't know if you maybe you shared just the window and not the whole thing.
Okay. So I must be sharing the wrong screen. Hold on just a sec here. Sorry, I apologize for that. Let's see. Yep. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I apologize for that. So again, the initial project was just to connect directly to the keyboard interface. I had to add in a single chip to connect it up. And I also added in a capacitor just to kind of filter out some of the noise that comes in on the Apple II actually going to the Raspberry Pi, because it's quite sensitive. So this is the circuit of it in the alpha form. The 244 is just simply a buffer that keeps it so that I can shut it off right away, so that what was happening when I directly connected the Raspberry Pi and I would send a keyboard strobe to the Apple II, it would just pick up all kinds of noise and repeatedly send the same keystroke repeatedly. So this single chip kind of filtered out the noise for me. The next step was taking the Raspberry Pi and getting it to boot quicker. The Raspberry Pi Zero is great, but it is definitely not like a Raspberry Pi 4. It's a little bit slower to load, takes almost a minute to boot up. So I wanted something that could boot up in about 30 seconds. That's initial time. Since this is made as kind of a secondary keyboard, I thought this would be an acceptable time period for you to get booted up into, if you're playing like a multiplayer game or something like that, to get that loaded and running. So in a Pi 3, which costs a little bit more money, I can get it up in about 15 seconds and running, and a Raspberry Pi Zero takes about 30 seconds to load. So this is kind of showing some of the things I had to look for on boot and where it was pausing, stopping, some things I had to shut down in the OS to get it to load quicker. And the Raspberry Pi, it's a 2x1 inch board. It's very small, very compact. It does a wonderful job of, you don't even need the Wi-Fi. It's just, you can't get the standard Raspberry Pi without Wi-Fi for $5. They're just too hard to source right now. But once they become available, this project could be even cheaper to build. So again, to do a reset, you just simply press the delete key. It's not programmed as control delete. It's simply delete, so you have to watch out for that if you're using the USB keyboard, because you can accidentally hit reset while playing a game. That would be disastrous. And yes, if you don't have numlock on, the period is a delete key. So if you press that, you will reset. So you got to make sure the numlock is on. And so the next question is, what about wireless keyboards? This question came up to me last weekend, and I was thinking about it. And so Wednesday, I ordered a wireless keyboard. As you can see here, this would be phenomenal, because you'd be able to use your Apple II or II+ without even having to be sitting directly in front of it. You could have another keyboard on another desk and still be playing with it. So I bought the cheapest wireless USB keyboard and mouse combo I can get, under $20 from Amazon, and plugged it in and tested it. And yes, it works. So you can now have a wireless USB keyboard to an Apple II or II+ with a simple circuit, and it works great. It's actually quite fun. I can't wait to actually get a more developed board into my own Apple II+. So what's left to do? Right now, this is going into beta testing. So I'm going to go to WireWrap, and I'm going to add the ability to hook both keyboard that's on board and the USB keyboard at the same time. If I were to just directly hook them both up, there would be bus contention. Both of them would be fighting for control, and chances are the onboard keyboard would take over and would lock out the USB keyboard. So it requires one more chip and a little bit of flipping around control, but it's pretty simple to do, and I have zero doubt that I can do that. So Control Q and Control S do not register. I'm going to look into that, see if I can find out why that is. It's a driver issue in Python. And also the caps light does not come on. When I start the Python program, I have it automatically change the code to uppercase. That can all be resolved later on. But for right now, it's only sending uppercase, but you can't tell that the caps is on because the light doesn't come on. So I'm going to work on that, see if I can get that resolved. But that's really the only issues I've got on it. It works great. I'm very happy with it. I'm kind of excited because it's something different. I like to try and come up with something that other people haven't done before. I've seen the USB adapters for the 2E, but I hadn't seen anything for the 2+. So, and that's really all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the project.
I guess the question I have is, I didn't hear if you said why you couldn't make the delete reset be a controlled delete.
I didn't look into programming it that way. I could probably move it to another key even. So chances are I can probably change that over and make it work in a different sequence. That's probably the safest way to do. Obviously, that's why Apple made control reset, is because people are easily pressing the reset button, and we want to try and avoid that.
Someone pointed out maybe you just need to put a stiff spring under your delete key.
And maybe I'll pull the one off my 2+ and put it under the USB keyboard. So.
We have somebody saying, have you considered programming with ULTIBO so you don't have to boot Linux to use a keyboard?
I'm definitely open to suggestions. I just kind of opened myself up to the Raspberry Pi world. I've been kind of sheltered from it. I've had zero time to work with this, so this is really my first delve into programming it, and I'm definitely open to suggestions on getting this. I'd love to see this thing boot in like 5 seconds. That would be ideal.
And would this also work on a 2E?
No. 2E uses a different keyboard interface. The Apple II, the keyboard had a built-in ASCII encoder, which turned keystrokes into ASCII code and automatically transmitted it to the main board of the Apple II. The 2Es use a matrix-style switch connector, and it does all the decoding on the 2E. So I would love to have that as my next project, because I like all the models of the 2s. I have no... my favorite's obviously the 2+, but I also have 2Es and GSs. So that would probably be the next thing I'll look at, is basically making a keyboard connector for USB for that 2E. And maybe even the GS, if we can do that too.
We're noticing that you have the 1977 Trinity there behind you. Do you do any of this retro work with your other two computers?
Yep, this is my, okay, so the 2+ is actually, my parents bought that for me in 1981, I think. At the time it had an MX100 set up, the modem, 80-column card, Zenith monitor, and I think my parents spent about $3,000 on that machine. It took a lot of begging for that machine. So this is kind of a little bit of my history of what I've used over my lifespan. So all of them are functional, but it is the Apple weekend, so they don't get to play.
Okay. Oh, let's see. What other questions? Someone asked, why is the 2+ your favorite?
Well, it was my first machine. This is actually my original machine I had back in 1981. As a matter of fact, back in the day, it was real common for appliances, TVs, things like that. People would put their driver's license numbers on them in case someone broke into your house and gets stolen. So my dad actually engraved his driver's license number on the back of the case of this.
Nice.
Wouldn't do that these days. But
All right. Any other final questions for Vince? Oh, will this project be open source?
Yes, as a matter of fact, if you look in the channel, I've already released the Python code. I really am not a programmer, so I would like it if people could go in and take a look at the code. I'm looking for suggestions on how to improve this. If there's a lot of interest in this, let's say we get 20, 50 people that would like this. I'll approach Henry at Reactive and see if he has the time to make another board. So we'll see how it goes. For right now, I kind of made it as kind of a one-off open source for people to enjoy, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your information.
Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed.